Welcome to the Sensitive Biker podcast. This is the first episode, and my name is Thomas Goofy Vestergaard. This episode, I'm gonna talk about my life, so you know where I'm coming from, and this channel is gonna be about self-development, about body, mind and soul. So there's gonna be something about from my past and my upbringing, about PTSD, violence in the home, alcoholism, drug addiction, sex addiction, and there's gonna be something about 12-step programs and other ways you can better yourself as a human being and better your mind to live a much more productive and positive life with a better mindset. So pretty much anything that has to do with being a better person, getting your best life, and being the best version of yourself. And of course, the way to that will also be something about diet, something about what's not good for you to put in your body, so you can be stronger and better and think more clearly. Something about how to work out. There will also be something about meditation and much more spiritual things. So all around being a better person for yourself and people around you. That's how I try to live my life, use every day, trying to be a better person, the best version of myself, and also using my past to help others. So my bad choices and my bad experiences, I can help through that. I can help others not make the same mistakes, and hopefully you can learn from my mistakes, so you don't have to do it yourself. And as I said before, this first episode is gonna be about my upbringing, so new people know where I'm coming from, and there's probably be some information that most of you that follow me haven't heard before. I'm gonna try and do it as short as possible, and maybe we'll have time to talk about my Clean and Sober Club as well. But if not, I'll save that for another episode. But for me, I grew up in a family with stress, fear, and violence. My dad was a drunken, abusive alcoholic. There was much violence in my home. He sold weapons to bikers and skinheads when I was a child. When I was 12 years old, we were standing in the back garden with semi-automatic rifles shooting at empty beer cans. I don't know how it is in your country, but in my country, 30-40 years ago, that wasn't normal. Let's just say that. So but I grew up in that family. There was a lot of stress for me, and that was where my seeds were getting sowed for PTSD, which I got later in life. But also in school, when I was at home, I tried to disappear so I wouldn't get noticed, because I didn't know when my father came home from work if he was angry or happy, or I never knew what was going on. And I tried always to do the right thing, but because of his drinking and his switch in attitude, what was the right thing one day could be the wrong thing the next day. So I could never feel safe. I never knew what was right and wrong, and so I just tried to stay out of his way and make as little noise as possible. Just trying to be small like a mouse, hiding in the corners. And when I started at school, I did pretty much the same thing, but it was a different environment, and it had the opposite effect, because instead of hiding, because I was hiding, I got noticed and I got bullied a lot in school as well. So I didn't have any place where I felt safe. But the years went on, and my mother took an education and found out that this relationship she had with my father was not going to work out. So she filed for divorce, and I went with my father, mostly because my mother also grew up with different problems in her family, and there was also abuse and alcohol involved. So as I felt it as a child was that I didn't felt her love towards me. I kind of felt that she was just there. She wasn't really giving me anything emotionally. So I felt when I was a child she was like a statue. She was just there. She wasn't really doing anything. That's what I felt anyway. Now I know, of course, that she had her own problems, and she didn't have the strength to give me what I needed, and battling my father at the same time with her own demons. But anyway, I went with my father because I rather be yelled at and hit than ignored. That was kind of the most important thing for me. I didn't want to be ignored, so I went with my father, even though he told me almost every day that I would never amount to nothing. I wasn't worth anything, and I was stupid, and all those kinds of things. But it didn't really matter. It was better than being ignored. So I chose a life with my father, and my mother took my two siblings, my brother, my little brother, and my little sister, and they left. At this time in school, I was kind of fed up with everything. So what happened was that one day I just snapped. There was this guy that was nagging on me, and the other guys in the group was just laughing. And I think we were doing track at this point. We were outside on the football field, and I just snapped. And I think he could see it in my eyes or something, because he looked really scared when I went for him, and just ran across two football fields, and I got him down on the ground, and I just started hitting on him until he started crying, and then I just left. I went home. And when I came to school the day after, everything has changed. Everybody was looking at me funny and talking in the corners, and nobody really wanted to engage with me. And I also got called up to the office, and I had to sit there, and they scolded me and said that I had to behave, and the other kids were afraid of me, and nobody seemed to care that I was bullied for years. And in this time, I was in sixth grade, I think. Yeah, that must have been it. and nobody seemed to care what happened to me, and nobody kind of asked the question why that I was quiet and didn't make any sudden moves or didn't talk much, and then suddenly one day I just switched. Nobody asked me what was going on at home or anything. It was like nobody cared. I felt that nobody cared. So the lesson for me in that was that, okay, uh, I hit this guy and he left me alone from that point. So I learned that I'll just have to use violence because that works. If someone says or do anything I don't like, I'll just use violence and then it'll stop, and then people will leave me alone. So in my child brain, that came my reality. That made sense to me. And a bonus for me was that I got all this attention suddenly. Suddenly I was the bad guy. Suddenly people were looking out for me and was afraid of me. And that was much better than just being ignored. So it was a win-win for me, and I went on for that, and I was the bad guy, and I liked it. I actually liked that attention for once. I like to pay them back for some of all the pain they put onto me for all those years. So now it was my turn to be the bad guy, and I enjoyed it very much. So that became my new persona, so to speak. And my my father, he helped me. I actually paid for it, but because I had a job after school for a couple of years writing with newspapers, but he helped me get a motorcycle when I was 14, and I rode this motorcycle to school a couple of days, and then the local policeman, he was there waiting for me one day when I was coming to school, and then I stopped coming to school after that. So when I got up in the morning, my father was sleeping out his what do you call it, drinking. He was drinking from the day before, and he was sleeping it off on the couch when I got up in the morning. So there was no one to tell me that, well, you have to go to school, Thomas. This is the right thing to do. So I did what I wanted. I just took my motorcycle and I went down to the bar where my father just left, and there was his friends, and they said, "Oh, that's Torben's boy, Thomas. You want a beer?" And yeah, of course. And I played some pool and drank some beers, and I was drunk before noon most days. And most of the 7th and 9th grade, yeah, 7th grade actually was. I was at school most of the time, but in the 9th grade, I was, I think, only 40%. The rest, I was just at the bar drinking and making trouble on my bike. And nobody seemed to care. Nobody questions it. No one called me to a meeting, or my father didn't get any letters from the school or anything. It was just, I felt like society didn't care about me, so why should I care about society? And then I started riding around with some other young boys, where some of them rode motorcycles. They were a little older than me, most of them. And then some of my old age, which were driving scooters and whatever they could get their hands on. And we started making some trouble. We started stealing cars and breaking into places and stuff like that. And There was one specific episode where we stole some cases of beer from an outhouse down the street, and we it was up to the weekend, so we were holding a party. We were drinking all these beers. I think there was 30 cases, and we were about eight or 10 guys, and we were having a swell time till this guy shows up, and he said that he thought that this was his beers, but he wasn't angry. He said, so if we'll just after the weekend we put in some new beers, and he'll forget all about it, and just so we would know that he was part of a motorcycle club. So that was just for our information. So I don't know, maybe he wanted us to know that he was a tough guy, but my friend that he was talking to, he didn't think so. So he just knocked him in the head, and when he fell to the ground, my friend started kicking him, and soon other guys came along and helped him, and there was maybe 5 or 6 guys kicking this grown man on the ground. And after a while, after a couple of days, we heard about some cars with tinted windows that was driving around, some BMWs that was driving around in the local area, asking about my friend, where he was, where he worked, and stuff like that. So maybe he was a biker. We never found out for sure, but he sure had a lot of friends. So my friend, he had to hide for a bit at some family up north. And at that point, another motorcycle club, they start hanging out at our local place. At this time, I was about 16, and I already had a mustache back then. And you must know that this is about, I'm 47 now, and I was 16, so it's a lot of years ago, and people don't care much back then how old you were. Kids could still go and buy beer and cigarettes. 10-year-olds, 8-year-old kids, nobody cared. They just thought they'll do it for their parents or whatever. So it was not a problem for me to get beer anywhere at a bar. People just didn't care, at least not in my area. So I was drunk most days. And also, these guys, they start hanging out there. They start telling us about, they thought it was tough about us, that we could handle a bunch of kids could handle a grown dude, and they asked us if we were wanting to hang out with them and see how real men works. So yeah, we never had that much acknowledgement from adult people, so we got kind of they bruised our they brushed our ego. I mean, they brushed our ego a bit, and we felt flattered about it, and we wanted to go. And before we knew it, we were hanging out with them almost every day, watching out for the police when they were selling drugs, watching out when they broke into places, selling drugs for them, stuff like that. And also going out with them when they were collecting money, debts for narcotics and stuff like that. And I seen some people getting their fingers cut off because they couldn't pay And that was kind of tough. So most of my friends, they thought it was too tough, so they left. They didn't want to be a part of that. But for me, I had nowhere else to go. I had my father was drunk most of the time, and he was yelling at me. So these people, they treated me maybe not as an equal, but close enough. I got some recognition for them and some encouragement, and I thought I was a part of something that was bigger than me, kind of a family, the closest thing to a family I ever had. So I stuck around, and even though it did get harder, I stuck around. I didn't feel I had any choice really. So it got more violence, and stuff got more heated. I got weapons involved, and because I was younger, of course, I didn't know all the rules in the motorcycle environment. I was young, and I didn't come from a family of bikers, so I made a lot of mistakes, and and some people in that group, they kind of helped me a bit and let the other people know that it's okay, it's just a kid, we'll just sort them out and it'll be okay. But there were some of the guys that got very angry with me and saw me as a threat, maybe even. So after a while, there were a couple of the guys in that group that was in prison for something they did. They were picked up and put in prison for something they did years ago. And someone had told the police, and some of the guys that didn't like me in that group, they started telling the other guys that I was the one that read it. So one day I was giving the message that, oh, we are gonna go to a party, and we all went in. Most of us went in one car. We went to this barn out in the country, and I was tied to a chair with duct tape, and I got a helmet on that was full of piss, so it smelled real bad. And there was duct tape around that as well, so I couldn't see out. And I was tortured in something I later found out was about 2 hours. I was hit with baseball bats on my knees, my head, my arms, my fingers, my feet, everywhere. I was burned with cigarettes. And when they were kind of bored with hitting on me, they I kind of feel that I was these two guys standing at both sides of me, and then they just started with all force with these baseball bats hitting my head from both sides. And of course I had the helmet on, but it was like being inside of a bell. So every time a bat hit, it kind of made this boom inside my head, this sound, and everything was shaking. And I got kind of these shards of electricity, it felt like, down my spine every time my head got hurt. And it was so painful that I actually threw up at one point. But because the helmet was so little, my puke couldn't get out, so I was choking on my own vomit, and eventually I passed out. And I woke up again. I don't know how much time had passed, but I woke up and I was not tied to the chair anymore. So I took my helmet off. There was dark in the room. So sorry, I couldn't, I could barely walk because my knees were swollen, and I could feel that one of my boots was filled with blood. So every time it was kind of putting my foot down in a soaked carpet or something like that, and I kind of crawled to the door. I could see a light under the door coming in from the outside, and I turned the light on, and I saw where I was laying. The chair was also on the floor, and was the big pile of blood where I was laying. And I kind of made a trail all the way over to the switch. But in the meantime, I was just staggering out of this barn and walking down this country road. And these guys that had beat me up, they were kind of talking to some other guys in a bar, and they were laughing about and bragging about what they did to me, actually. And some of my other friends, they heard what was going on, and they got out of these guys where it happened, and they came to my aid. So when I was walking down this road, I remember seeing these car lights coming, and a car brakes, and I heard the door slam, and some guy was yelling my name, and then I just passed out. But they actually put me up a place in our apartment for a couple of months. They didn't want to go to the cops or to the hospital or anything, so they kept me there, and they found out for me what actually went on. And what happened was that one of the guy that actually talked to the police, that was one of the guys that was with me when they beat me up. So that was for covering his own ass, of course. And they tried to get him, but he disappeared. He ran off to Thailand, and I haven't heard from him since. But after that, I kind of I wasn't really interested in hanging out with that crowd anymore. So I kept my distance, and I was allowed to leave. No one did, or I think they felt a little ashamed at what they did. And certainly there were none of them that wanted to tell me that they were sorry about it. So they kind of just kept a distance. I would see some of them in town. Sometimes they will just walk on the other side of the street and not look at me at all. So I just left, and without saying a word. But some of the guys I was hanging out with earlier, the guys that was riding scooters and bikes and stuff like that earlier, they, in the meantime, they had come in contact with some skinheads and neo-Nazis, and they talked highly of this place. Some guys were starting up near Copenhagen in a town named Greve. Yeah, why not? I thought, oh, why not check it out? So and I went there, and for me it was like everything fell into place there, because there was this fellowship where I could hate anything I was afraid of, everybody that was different than me, everything I didn't understand. I could blame immigrants and the government for all my wrongdoings. I didn't have to look at my part in anything that had happened in my life. I could just blame everyone else. Most of all, I hated myself, but I couldn't live with that, so it was much easier just hating everything and everybody else. So also I felt that I was a part of a family, and I was fighting for something that was bigger than me. And that was important. That gave my life some meaning and purpose, and me a purpose. So I joined the Nazi Party, and soon I was at, I think, a couple of days after I joined, there was this big event. They were opening up the house they bought in Greve, and we were there at this big parties of Nazis from Germany and Holland and all around Europe, even a guy from America. And the day after, it was all over the newspapers, and we kind of got on the siege from the left wing, and there was a lot of guys outside demonstrating the day after, the night even. In the middle of the night, there was about 200 demonstrators outside, mostly Antifa and left wing, and they were shouting that they wanted to kill us. They were throwing stones and other things, bombs, fire bombs, all the over our fence, and we were lying. I was lying outside with a guy that had a baseball bat, and I had a kitchen knife, and we had these homemade shields. And I never felt so alive that I did in that moment. All the adrenaline moving through my body, and I'm fighting for this cause, and I have a purpose now, and everything seemed to make sense. And I stayed there for 16 years. From I was 16, 17, and 16 years in total. And when I left, it was kind of like, I didn't really know how to leave, because at that point I had 3 kids with 3 different women. My life were in ruins. I couldn't keep a job. I was drinking heavily. When I had ulcer because of drinking the first time when I was about 15, and I had a couple of times after, because I couldn't really stop. I had different kinds of things I was addicted to. One time I was addicted to sugar. I drank about 5 or 6 liters of Coca-Cola every day. And I was kind of like sitting, shaking in the morning until I got my first half liter of Coca-Cola, and just so I could keep my hands straight. So, and when that didn't work, I found something else to be addicted to. I've been addicted to violence. I've been addicted to pornography. I've been addicted to gaming, to extreme sports, working out, lifting weights, you name it, everything. I haven't been addicted to any any drugs, only pills and alcohol. I had, when I was 15, I had 3 friends that just wanted to see how it was to get a fix, and 2 of them died in the apartment they were hooking up in, and the third one died in the ambulance on his way to the hospital. So for me, that was I didn't dare touch any drugs, but I had plenty of other addictions I could play with to numb myself and not feel my emotions. So and also games. I never been using games as an addiction. I think it was stupid to use money on, and like I never smoked either. At least not cigarettes. So because I think that was too expensive as well, and it didn't really give me something, so I never started on it. But everything else got really addictive. But it wasn't like when I was drinking too much and I saw it was starting to affect my life in different ways. I kind of just switch addiction to. Then I just look at more porn, or I'll just work out more. I even have some back injuries because I was bench lifting and lifting legs press with over 300 kilos, and there wasn't any more weights in that training center where we were at. So instead of just getting some other exercises, we just starting leg press with one leg instead of 2, and that gave me some back injuries that I have some problems with today, but I'm lucky. It could have been much worse. But I was fighting all these addictions, and it was like all these relationships I have with women. I couldn't really get them to work. Always, I couldn't behave. I didn't know how to be a boyfriend, a good boyfriend or friend or anything. I never learned. I grew up with my father at a bar. You don't learn those things there. So life was kind of hard for me. I couldn't really figure out what to do. So I just indulged in all of these bad behaviors and addictions I had, and tried to get the best of it. And at one point, I remember having this big convention with Nazis from all over, and they called me Little Goebbels back then because I was good at talking. I was good at getting people to listen to me. I had all the right answers. I listened very well. I wanted to be a good Nazi. I wanted everybody to like me. I didn't want them to figure out that deep inside I was just this little scared boy. So every time when there was something going on, I was the one shouting the loudest. I was the one that hit first and ran towards danger the first. So I could kind of show everybody that I'm not afraid. But I was afraid. I was very afraid all the time. Afraid of everything. Afraid of my own shadow even. So, but back to the lecture. I was talking, and when I was finished, they were kind of like clapping at me and yelling my name. They even stood on the tables and cheered me on. But at that moment I actually felt alone. I haven't felt that alone before in my entire life. It was not a very good feeling, and I didn't know why at the time. Now I know, of course, that it was because I knew deep inside that it wasn't me that were clapping at. They were clapping at what I said because I just said what they wanted to hear. So I could be a part of that organization and have a family and have some worth in the world. The only thing that I ever was applauded for was being a Nazi. That was the only thing I thought I was good at. So that was why I was clinging on to it so bad. But at this time, also the head of the Nazi party, he was talking about retiring because he was burned out, and at this time I was the next in command. I was the head editor of the Nazi newspaper, the Fatherland, and I had my comings and goings in the house and the Nazi house, the bunker we had, and I knew that if he would leave, then I had to take over, and that's where I got this realization that, is that really the life I want? Is that really the person I am? Do I want to end up like him, angry old man? But I didn't know what else to do. As I said before, that was all I was ever good at. So I tried doing different things. I took a hunting license. I took a course in how to raise bees because I wanted to make my own honey. I started building at home, building a bigger kitchen, extra place. I expanded the house. I built a garage, a chicken coop, and stuff like that to kind of show myself and others that there was something else I was good at. I was not just good at being a Nazi. I could actually do other things. But the time came where he left the organization, and they had to choose another leader. And because that I was they felt that I was withdrawing from the organization, so they could feel there was something wrong, and also I had at this point I've been sick for a couple of years, and I hadn't been able to work. It was because of a virus on the balance nerve, they said, but they changed that about 5 years ago to PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. But they didn't know what it was back then. That was what they called it. It wasn't that common known. But the Nazis thought that it was this is something psychological. So they couldn't have a sick person to be a leader of the Nazi party. So that kind of saved me a bit, that they kind of backed off of me because of that, and they chose another guy. And he acted like it was the IRA he became the leader for. So it didn't take long before he ruined everything. I kind of helped build up the last, at that point, 16 years. And For me, I was relieved that they didn't choose me, but also I was conflicted about it because I was still trying to hang on to my personality. I thought this is who I am, and I don't know what else to do. I still hadn't figured it out yet. So for me, I tried to fix it, and at one day we were sitting making the newspaper, and I was in the office with another guy, and I called the former leader of the Nazi Party in Denmark, and I said to him, "Well, it's all fucked up. He's ruining everything we built the last 16 years." And he said, "Oh, that wasn't good. And is there?" He kind of tricked me. He asked me if there was anyone else that thought that he was a bad leader, and I named some names because I trusted him. And after that, I was kind of I had to go. I have to leave the office because I had my oldest daughter at that point. She was the only daughter I had, but my oldest daughter I had to have um, in that weekend. So I left early, right after the call, actually. And that was a good thing for me because after I left, 8 or 10 guys came in the office with clubs and hoods over their heads and started beating up on my friend. And they were thinking that we were making some kind of coup, and they wanted to know what was going on, what we had planned, and where I was. But eventually they let him go. And he called me and told me, "Thomas, you don't go home, man. They're waiting for you." So at that point I hadn't talked to my mother in several years. So I contacted her, and I was allowed to have my daughter there for the weekend. And after that, I kind of stayed with other friends and people that I knew before I came a Nazi. So so I was hoping then doing it that way they wouldn't find me. But I was paranoid. There was a friend from a German Nazi party at that time that went out of a party he had helped start up earlier, and he was found 2 weeks later in a ditch outside of Berlin, beaten to death. So I was kind of afraid that some of the same things might happen to me. And at this point, I felt pretty much alone because that those 2 years leading up to that, I lost a lot of friends. Some by drug overdose, suicide, and I even got a friend from a Nazi party in Germany that got shot by two left wing activists in at a Nazi rally in Berlin, I think. He got shot 2 times in the head because he wouldn't let these two people in to the meeting. And I had a guy in Sweden that was he was 15 actually, and he was beaten up by some immigrants that had seen him at a Nazi rally. So they beat him up and nearly cut his right arm off because they didn't want him to go and make the Nazi signals in their town. So for me, I felt pretty much alone. It was like everybody was dropping like flies around me. I had about 10 people that died inside of 2 years, so I was kind of paranoid. Like all my bad deeds were catching up to me. So so after a while, I became so paranoid that I had a gun in my jacket, and I had a bulletproof vest, and even when I took a shower, I had a loaded gun in the sink because I was afraid someone's gonna kick in the door. And some of my friends said, "You can't keep on going this way. You need to do something about it." So I say, "Okay, I got nothing to lose." So I called up the leader of the Nazi party, and after he scolded me and shouted at me for about 15 minutes, I just told him, "Hey, look, man, I don't want to be a part of this anymore. I just want out. I don't want anything. I don't want to make any trouble. Just let me go." And after a while, we talked a bit, and he decided that I could leave on the if I promised that I wouldn't go public and say anything the next year, because it would look bad for him that the next in command leaves right after 3 months after he took over the command of the Nazi party, or the leading position. So I used to say to people that his ego kind of saved my ass. And yeah, after that, I kind of like I was relieved at the start. I was very relieved. It was like a whole new world opening up, and I ate my first kebab. I got my first pizza, and I got my hair cut at a guy from Turkey, and I had sex with a Muslim lady, and all these things kind of just, it was like a whole new world that was opening up for me, and I was intrigued by it. I was curious, and I even went to a gay bar, and I talked to some of the people there and figured out that, well, there was really nothing to be afraid of. They're just people like me with well, not a preference for sexual adventures, but still, um, when you ask questions, there's not really much to be afraid of. So the most of the fear that I had was in my head, and the truth and asking questions, being curious instead of being afraid, that actually helped a lot and helped me see the world in a different light. But after a while, it was kind of like it dawned on me that, okay, now you're not Thomas the Nazi. Now you're not getting applaud for that anymore. Who are you? If you're not a Nazi, who are you? And I didn't know who I was. And after that, I kind of got depressed, and I tried to kill myself. It wasn't the first time. I tried that when I was active with drinking as well. But that's a whole other story. But there was this neighbor. I talked about, we were just talking over the fence, back and forth, nothing really fancy, but he said some things that kind of make me realize that he was working with addicts, and he had some understandings about addiction and some worldviews that I didn't really understand. So one day when it was really bad, I kind of knocked on his door 3 o'clock at night with my tears running down my cheeks, and told him, "Yeah, I need help. Can you help me? I don't know what to do. I don't know where to go, but I know I can't live like this." And he invited me in, got a cup of coffee, and he called a friend who took me to a meeting the day after. And that was a meeting in a 12-step program uh, for children of alcoholics and other dysfunctional families. And that kind of blew my mind, because now I was not alone anymore. There were other people like me, other people that thought like me, that had the same problems. But also there was something I could do about it. I didn't have to go around feeling like shit. I could actually physically do something about it to try and get better. And that was a game changer for me. Because here there was a program, I could take these steps, I could learn how to be a better man, a better boyfriend, a better father for my kids, a better friend. All these things I never learned with my father, because I grew up at a bar on the back of a bike. I never knew anything about such things. I never had a role model. So I never knew what a real family should look like. But here I could get an inkling of it. I could get some ideas and trying to create my own life in the way I want it, without hurting myself and, of course, not hurting anybody else. So that was kind of the start of it. And because of my addictive personality, this also became kind of my addiction, because I realized that every time that I I every time I did something new, when I solved a problem, or when I had a discussion with someone and I didn't make drama, or I didn't became violent or something like that, when I did things different, it was kind of a rush inside me. Wow, I changed. I actually did something different, and I got a different result, instead of just doing the same fucking thing, over and over again, and expecting a different result. It never happened. But now I actually did something different, and the end result was different, and it was positive. So I got addicted to that kick every time I changed. So it became a drug to me to go to these meetings and to read books about self-envelopment and partnership and relationship with how to raise kids and all these kinds of things, to think positive. And it was just it was like a drug for me, but in a good way. So I used my addiction. Oh, well, let's try again. I used my addictive behavior to in a positive way, to help me be a better person. And for many years I just went down that path. And I also got in contact with another motorcycle club that was clean and sober, but maybe we should take that discussion in the next episode. I can see now we're at an hour, so I hope that that my telling my story, maybe you can mirror something of what I said in your own life, or maybe you can just understand where people like me is coming from, and maybe get a sense of me as a person and where this channel is gonna go, which direction. And as I said in the start, it will be about being a better person, better version of yourself using every day. And it will be about health, about food, about spirituality, about bettering yourself in any other way, emotionally, physically, whatever it takes. So so hopefully you will hang on and see some of the other broadcasts I make. But hope you enjoyed yourself. And remember, don't have a good day, have a great one.